So it's Are We Where Yet? So it's about people's journey in life. So it's about your journey. And if you yawn on my show, I swear to God, Mitch.
You have to stimulate me a little bit.
No, I'm just kidding, man. You do what you got to do. So it's about your journey, and then we'll kind of ask like where you want to end up at the end of it and stuff. So.
Welcome to Are We Where Yet with Johnny Awesome and Tori Black.
All right, everybody, welcome out to episode 2. Well, I should say season 2 first, right? That sounds better. Season 2, episode 3 of the Are We Where Yet podcast. I'm your host, Johnny, and we got Tori back today.
Hello.
Hi, Tori. And I just want to thank our partners, North End Coffee Shop. It's I go there every Monday and kind of edit some audio from some things that I'm doing, and I love just chilling there. It's a good vibe. So North End Coffee House, downtown Yuma, Arizona. You go over there, mention our podcast, you get 10% off your drink or a free cookie. And cookies are all right to eat, right, doctor?
Sure.
Sure. We got the okay from the doctor. We can eat a cookie. It's all good. And then I think you might like this one. Our other sponsor or partner is Studio Y, Studio Y Yuma, Studio Y Yoga. You go to their website, you can sign up for a class, and they're giving 25% off a membership or a class. So I've been doing the meditation every Thursday.
I still have to go to that.
Yeah,
I need
it's
it.
great.
I need it in my life.
You like meditation?
I do it in bed.
You do it in bed?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's good.
And then I go to sleep.
Then you go to sleep. That's
awesome.
So is that how you kind of prepare yourself for sleep?
Uh-huh.
That's great. So the man that we're talking to on the other side here is Dr. Mitch Freeman. Dr. Mitch Freeman, who's been practicing medicine in Yuma for how long?
19 years.
19 years.
Wow.
And I've known you for a while now, and I wanted to get you on this podcast because I think you got a great story to tell about coming here to America. You're not from America. You look Mexican, but you're not from America. You're from Iraq, which is modern-day Babylon, correct?
And the Mesopotamia.
Whatever he said. Mesopotamia.
It's a line word means in between the two rivers.
Okay. And I'm a little bit familiar with your story, and so I just wanted to be able to give you a platform to express your journey in coming here to America like Eddie Murphy did. And so anyway, you were born in Basra? Basra, Iraq. And what is it like in Iraq? First of all, just give us a little taste of Iraq.
At the time.
Mm-hmm. Which was, I think I got in my notes here, a long time ago.
Because you've never been there, it's hard for me to tell you what it looked like. But probably for you, I'll tell you, it's not different than going to Mexico.
Very similar to Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, yeah, there's some nice neighborhood. There's some poor neighborhood. Simple people. Simple family. Strong family units.
Big on family.
Yes.
Okay, so like Mexico.
The closest I can tell you, like for you to understand it.
Mm-hmm. And Tori, you just said you were in Mexico at a doctor's visit for somebody, right?
Yeah, it took like 8 hours to see the doctor. Yeah.
It won't take that long over there.
She said there was a little, like to sign up to see the doctor, there was a little notepad out front on the sidewalk.
With a rock.
With a rock on it.
Mm-hmm. Holding it down.
That's
We didn't have iPad at the time. I'm talking about I left 25 years ago.
Well, no, this was a notepad.
Uh-huh.
That
like a paper and pen.
A paper and pen.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it must be a really famous doctor that everyone wants to go to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, you were in Iraq, and I think you were telling me something about a candy store. So let's start there. You're how old? There's a candy store. Go.
It's actually a candy factory.
Factory?
Yeah, not store.
Okay.
It's probably one of 5 in the country. I grew up always. My dad had a candy manufacturing business. As long as I remember, but if I go back, let's say it's like any point in time. Let's say I'm in high school, just got in high school. My dad had a candy factory, and going to high school, we were 4 brothers, 2 sisters, and a mom and dad, and everything hunky dory. And we go to school, but on holidays, like on the big holidays, like summer breaks. He take us to the factory to help him there and learn.
Okay, so you weren't working in the factory as a kid always. It was just like when break time would come.
When school break.
Dad says, hey, come over, learn the family business.
And we get paid a little bit also, and just you buy whatever you want to buy for what you get paid for.
Oh, cool.
But when school starts, we go to school.
So school's in, you're going to school. So what kind of factory or what kind of candy was it?
It's hard candy.
Hard candy. This wasn't a cover for WMDs or anything, right?
No.
No, you're not in one of those factories. This is candy.
Candy, yeah.
Okay, cool. And
we were producing like the last one we had. We were producing about 1 ton a day, like 2,200 pounds of hard candy a day.
wow.
Yeah, and we don't even have to go out and sell it. Usually, wholesalers come to the factory and pick it up. And
So okay, so it was one of those. It was pretty big at that.
well, it's a big operation. The location it's not very big, but it's very controlled, small operation. But we're producing about 1 ton a day, so we use a lot of sugar
So where are you guys getting the sugar at?
from the stores.
Just you go to a market and
Yeah,
get what you need to get.
You know, before the embargo, like it was easy to get the sugar. After the embargo, supposedly the government limited the sugar limit that we could use, but we just go to the store and buy it because the sugar at the time was subsidized. So if you go now and buy a kilo, like a pound of sugar here, like let's say $1. A kilo is 2 pounds. So if you go buy sugar for $1, if you make it a candy, you have to sell it more than $1, right? Mm-hmm. But if the candy is sold for $1, you can't make sugar from that. So usually stuff like that is at the time they were subsidized, so they sell it for 20 cents. So if you manufacturing process costs you another 20, 30 cents. If you sell it for $1, it's inexpensive and you make a decent profit. But after the war, after first the embargo.
So the embargo happens. So you're talking embargo
in 1990. So what happened is when Saddam went and invaded Kuwait in 1990, the United Nations they implemented an embargo against the Iraqi government by not allowing them to sell oil, and the main revenue is selling oil, so they have no revenue. They actually announced that manufacturing candy was illegal. So we have to stop.
So you were like a drug dealer, illegal?
illegal process, yeah.
Wow.
So you cannot.
Candy.
Yeah. So because they wanted the sugar to be used for domestic use, like for tea and coffee and household domestic use, not for candy.
So candy was like excess. That was like
a luxury item. Now okay. You're in a war situation. You want to like buckle down and use things for necessity, not for luxury.
Gotcha.
So actually, at that point, there is no selling sugar. So whatever you have, we have like a few tons. Actually, it was more expensive to sell them as sugar than make them into candy. But before that, when Iraq was in a war with Iran for 8 years, there was...
So give us a time frame. When is this war with Iran?
From 1979 to 1988.
1979, 1988.
Yeah, actually, the ceasefire was, I was in a boot camp, it was 8/8/1988.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you remember the date.
I remember the date because I was in a boot camp. I was a 5-year medical student, and they took all my medical school for like a militia training in a boot camp by military, but we were not military. We're civilian. But they took us for our 3-month summer break to train in case there's like the war will get to the city and we can defend ourselves. So they would train us.
So you got to shoot a gun and stuff?
They trained us on guns and like AK-47 when I was 14.
Oh, wow. So you're already familiar with it.
In high school, they were taking us to the local park, the government. They give us AK-47 and local parks, and they train us. And then 1 year, actually, they gave us an AK-47 to take home to save with us. And in case we need, they will give us the ammo. But they didn't give us the ammo, just the guns, and we kept it for the whole year.
And that's because that's the climate that you kind of grew up in.
Yeah, because there was a situation. We were in a war. Like you could be sitting in your school or in your university, and at any time you can get a Scud missile. And at the time, they were not as that accurate. They're not. There was no laser or GPS guided. It's like dumb missiles. They throw them on, and they have like a quarter mile or a half a mile radius that they go in, and they can go anywhere in the street, in a house, in a school.
Wow.
And you just deal with it.
So this is growing up in Iraq.
Uh-huh.
So they 14. They say, all right, here's an AK-47. You're going to learn how to shoot it. Hopefully, you don't shoot yourself.
No,
and mess up.
you all have all the school. They have to go to the park, and over there, there's like military personnel. They will train us on AK-47s.
What was your thought when you first held that AK-47? Was it something like, I can get used to this? You feel like, powerful? Or was it like kind of nervous? Because I don't like guns personally.
Johnny,
You know?
I don't remember.
You don't remember? Okay.
It's probably like a toy to us because we got used to it.
You just got used to it.
There's
Okay.
we were not intimidated by it.
Okay.
'Cause
It was just a
We see it
culture.
around us. We see it on TV. I mean, we're in a war. We'd be sitting eating dinner and watching TV, and on TV they showing like battlefields with dead people and people are shot up or blown up or fermented and their body swollen, and that's normal footage.
That's the news?
News or, the TV over there at the time we have two channels. One channel that starts from 6 p.m. to about midnight, that's 6 hours, and the other one starts at 6 p.m. to like a couple hours, and they both got a state TV, and there's no other stations. And if they catch you having any special antenna to catch any neighboring countries' broadcast, you can go to jail for that.
Oh.
Yeah, so you only see what the government show you. And most of it, especially if there's a battle going on, there's just propaganda, and we killed them, and we killed that many, and we did that many, but they don't say how much we lost, and we just see like you could be driving and you see big buses that they usually convert them, take the beds off, and they put stretchers, and they're probably big buses that they carry 20, 40 injured people or dead people carry them, but they don't talk about it. They just talk about what the enemy lost, and it's just, that's the way it is.
So that's life growing up. And so you were, so you mentioned about being 14, high school. When did you decide that you wanted to be a doctor?
After I had my results, my final results from my high school, I always wanted to be an engineer.
Oh, so first you wanted to be an engineer.
Yeah, because I like hands-on things. I do things with my hand. I grew up with candy factory, doing everything, fixing mechanic, electric, plumbing, anything. And then after I got my results, to the highest over there, the system goes, when you graduate high school, you take that test, equivalent to your test here, they call SAT.
Okay.
But you have to pass it to finish high school. And the pass is 50%. The max is 100%. And according to your score, whatever you score on that, you apply in a form, 50 choices, and the whole country go into this match process, computerized, and you get picked according to your score only. There's no interview, there's no money involved, there's no other factors involved. So the highest wanted on demand is medical school, and then engineering, certain engineering more than others. And I was hoping to get engineering, which I would need about mid-80s score. But I scored 94.
But you did too good. You're just an overachiever.
I did 94, and on the way home, my friend, we're walking home, and he scored I think he scored 97, and he wanted medical school. And he had a couple brothers that are engineers. He said, "What are you going to do?" I told him, "I want to go engineering." He said, "Why?" I told him, "I like to do hands-on stuff." He said, "No, I have two brothers engineers. They do nothing hands-on. If you want hands-on, medicine is hands-on." And at the time, I've never really thought about medicine because it was something like a very hard-to-reach goal. But I have the score for it. And at the time, my father was actually, he had leukemia at the time it was 3-4 years, and thought, you know what, I can do that. and it will be something like it got me interested, and he talked me into it. I can be a doctor to help my father, my family, and my friends to navigate the medical system.
Yeah, there's some practical needs there as well for this medical.
Yeah, we don't have anyone in my family that's in the medical field. Mm-hmm. So it's like, hey, I can do it. So
and that score probably gave you like some confidence that you can do it.
Yeah.
Because you scored in that level of these people that are already becoming doctors.
Yeah. I got the second school in the country out of 7.
Wow.
So got it done.
So then what year is that?
Graduate high school in 1983.
1983. And then you go directly into college?
Actually, directly to a 6-year medical school.
Okay, so a medical school, that's what it is.
Yeah, it's they call it over there a college, but here the word college refers to a 2-year school.
Okay.
And university refers to a 4-year. Over there, a college is a 4-year, and a 2-year degree is, they call it institute.
Okay,
college.
so it's just a little bit different wording and
Yeah,
terms
different wording.
Okay.
So it's over there. It's average university is over there 4 years, but medical is 6, and there's one engineering that's 5, and I think dental maybe a 5, but medical school is a 6 years. So that includes all what you call here pre-med and medical school. It's 6 years, and then after that you do 2 years of internship or rotation, and then you practice. And at the time, so when you turn 18, you have to go to the military. But if you go to medical school, then you push that 6 years.
Oh, so you get to push it back 6
Yeah,
years?
yeah.
So then, okay,
You
6 years.
They wait until you graduate to go to medical to the military.
Because medical is in high demand.
Actually, all high education, like if you go to a 2-year institute or a 4-year college, 5-year college, 6-year college, you go to military after you finish it. Or if you flunk it, they take you out.
Oh, so it's like, no, come here, flunky. You're here back in the military.
Yes, so because it's actually, at my time, interestingly, there's no man that will finish a 2-year degree in a 2 year. They all flunk themselves another year to delay their military admission 1 year.
Wow.
Okay.
But in medical school, we don't do it. So at the time when I was in 2nd year medical school, my father died. And my brother at the time, he already flunked himself 1 year in a 2-year degree, so he couldn't leave the school and run the candy business. So I stepped in, and I decided I can submit a request to my university and tell them I want 1 year off, so it doesn't count as a flunking. I'm not trying to flunk myself. So I asked for a 1 year off to go run the family business and then go back. Because it was at the time when my father died, the business was not running at the time for technical reasons, but we were ready to get it running by the time my dad had all the paperwork. All the paperwork to get it running for, like, while he was in the hospital and he died. Mm-hmm. So we were ready to get it running, but we need someone to manage the operation. So I left medical school for a year and start running it. Most of my friends, they thought, oh, he's not coming back. Because, over there as a doctor, you don't make money much.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, you make way more in a candy store. You make more selling lemonade on the street than a doctor over there.
What?
Okay, so
If you're a car mechanic, you have a little shop that you fix one car at a time. You make more money than a doctor over there.
So give me some context around that, because that's hard to believe.
Right.
Yeah, it's really, I think it's mostly in America that doctors do really well. But over there in general, any private enterprise, any private operation, you do way better than any employment. Whether a doctor, engineer, if you work for a government, you don't make much. So seriously, I'll give you some kind of numbers. And at the time, I'm talking about in the 1990s, if you calculate a government salary for a person that works for the Iraqi government, if you sum all the lifetime salary of, let's say, 30 years, would not make to buy a new vehicle.
Wow.
And
that's horrible.
yeah, and at the last days of Saddam, when the war happened, beginning day, so Saddam, when he got the government, things were going well. And gradually, because he was geared toward military and funding the military and spending like 90% of the money of the country on military, and the currency started deteriorating. So when he first started the government, 1 dinar, that's the local currency, equal $3.3. By the time I left Iraq in 1993, I think $1 is 3 or 10 dinar. Close to the end of his, by the time, the U.S. went and removed him in 2003. So like early 2000, 2001, 2002, $1 equal 3,000 dinar. So the inflation is like 10,000 times.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And if I would talk, I was talking with a friend of mine, he was a doctor at the time. Actually, when I left, I have a friend who was picking up my, I was a resident at the time, so an intern, he was picking up my check and going to deposit it. Because when I left, I supposedly was in the military when I left Iraq, but
Okay.
I've never joined the military. So I left him some forged paper saying I'm in good standing with the military. He'd go and pick up my salary and take it, drop it at the bank. But it was nothing. One day he called me, he said, the money that I give to the taxi is more than what I'm picking up for your salary. I told him, just drop it.
Yeah, just forget it.
Yeah, just forget it.
It's not even worth it.
Exactly. So the lowest point was a whole month salary of a doctor was $10 a month.
So you score high on this thing. You do the best you can in school to get a low-paying job.
Well, yes, medicine over there, being a doctor is not a moneymaker, is more a prestige.
Prestige. So there's some integrity, though.
Yeah,
It
there's a
shows
prestige to it.
you have some character about yourself.
And really another thing I would think, a doctor over there, so most doctors over there, they have their government job, which is from like 8 to 3 or 4, and then they walk out of that, go straight to their clinic job, which is from 4 to 9 or 10 p.m. What kind of life is that?
That's not a life.
Exactly. What kind of life is that? And because the government job doesn't give you money, but it gives you the exposure, and you have to have that one. Probably some of them will quit that at some point, but if you don't have exposure on hand in a government, then if you have people to admit, you don't have privileges and stuff like that. It's too complex. It's really hard to explain. And like right now, if you say, okay, how is the situation right now? Probably a physician, government employee physician in Iraq would get paid $3,000 a month.
Okay. It's a lot better.
Right.
A college professor probably get paid more.
Okay.
Opposite to here. But, here probably a physician, some specialty could make $3,000 in a day, not in a month.
Yeah, for sure. So, the war went on with Iran. Let's get to 1989. War's over.
Actually, 1988 was the
sorry.
year over. Started in 79 to 88.
Okay, 79 to 88. War's over. You're going to school. You graduate in 1991, correct?
Graduated in 1990. The war started in 1990. I think. See, Saddam invaded. I graduated in July of 1990. The next month, August of 1990, Saddam invaded Kuwait.
So 1 month after you graduate, there's only what is that? Only a few years of no war.
We were waiting to get into our assignment residency hospitals, and he invaded Kuwait. And then in January, the U.S. started the Desert Storm.
Yeah,
called?
I remember it as a kid watching the news at my grandpa's house. Desert Storm, Storm and Norman Schwarzkopf, I think.
Yeah,
was
Norman Schwarzkopf.
Yeah.
Desert Storm. They started. So I was a resident doing residency, and at the time the war mostly it's in the outskirts of the city, and because I'm in Baghdad, there's a lot of targets in the city, but they're not civilian target. But there's some will look like could be civilian, but they're probably undercover, or civilian could be get injured close to military targets. And we've seen some injured people, but the government were trying to get mostly military injuries to their military hospitals, not to get them exposed to civilian hospitals.
So you are working for the government.
All the hospitals over their government.
All the hospitals are government, but not military side of the government.
No.
So there's a separation there.
Yeah.
So you're not really seeing the casualties and the ugly side
Just
of war.
Just like here in Yuma, the city and the county is government, but not necessarily
not military. So it's okay. So then you graduate, you become a doctor, but you're here in America now. So what happened? And can you talk about it?
Yeah, like some people think like, he decided to go to America and just went to the airport and got on a plane and came here.
Which is what we could do, right?
You can do, yeah.
We have the freedom to hop on a plane and go wherever we want to go.
Most people, when they think like, that's just how those people came here, like, no, it doesn't happen
there's a little
that way.
bit, there's some story, some background there.
No, it's too complicated. First of all, so let's back up a little bit. So the war started, actually the U.S. gave the deadline, and they gave the deadline as if Saddam doesn't pull off Kuwait at this time, this hour, then we're going to have a war. We're going to go and get him out. But we were not very clear about the time that they gave. We don't remember. Probably they said the time. It was what time it is, because there's a 10-hour difference. Like right now, it's 10 o'clock. Over there, it's 8 o'clock night. They're 10 hours ahead of us.
So there wasn't much clarity.
To us, I don't remember the details.
Yeah.
So people, we didn't understand the timing, like, Washington time or Baghdad local time. So actually we had a couple of vehicles loaded, and my family were ready to leave Baghdad because there'd be a lot of targets in Baghdad. So they're going to go to the south. It's about a couple-hour drive where my parents from. They know a village where they come from, and there's no targets there.
So you're trying to find safety, which is what any human being will do at that point.
You get out of chaos.
You guys are very family oriented there. You get your family together.
Yeah.
Let's get out of the chaos.
Yeah. So it's my immediate family and whatever cousins and aunt, they come with us, and we were the one that we had the vehicles. Most other families don't have vehicles. So we were loaded and ready to go like by midnight, and then nothing happened. Our vehicles and trucks still loaded, and about 2, 3 a.m. So we went to bed. At about 2, 3 a.m. the war started.
Oh, okay.
So the vehicles still loaded. So we just in the morning, like 7 o'clock or so, we just loaded up. And actually, I at the time I had a brand new Chevy, and I loaded. I drove with them south. So I took few people of my family and immediate family and cousins and whoever come with us. It was like a 4-hour drive. We drove south all the way, dropped them there, and came back straight. I'm the only one that came back to Baghdad because at the time I was in residency, and I was really afraid for myself. I felt safe, even though there was bombing. But American bombing is relatively accurate, and I'm not a target. They're not going to waste a missile on me. And accidents happen no matter where you are.
Yeah.
So
you have to know all that going into what you're going into.
Yeah.
Like, hey.
So as I was driving in, actually, when I drove back, we drove in the morning, and by the time I came back, it was dark, and I was getting into the borders of Baghdad city, into the entrance of the city, and checkpoints and like no, don't drive, there's bombing, there's active bombing, like airplanes dropping bombs like constant. There's no breaks.
There was a barrage.
Yeah.
I just want to stop you real quick. I remember when that happened. I was 11, 12 years old, and I was staying with my grandparents, and my grandfather was watching the news, cheering. So while this is going on for you, he's like, get him, go get him, tell them, you know what I mean? He's kind of excited about this thing because he's buying into this other narrative that we're being taught here, like we're fighting this evil thing. And my uncle was actually in the military.
You want me to surprise you?
What?
I was saying the same thing. Get him.
Okay. So,
Get him.
okay.
Get him.
So who are we getting? Saddam.
Saddam.
Get rid of this guy.
But we thought the war was to get Saddam out, but it wasn't. It wasn't.
To get control.
And even, later when I met some American soldiers and get to talk to them, so you guys getting games? Like, we don't know. Like, what are you here for? Aren't you here for him to get him out? Like, we don't know. So the mission kind of changed as they're going in. So it turned out at the end, the mission was really to weaken him and leave him there, not to get him. To limit his power in the region, but not to get him out. Initially, they were thinking of getting him out, but then there's some development happen in the Gulf countries. They'd rather have a Sunni tyrant than a dominant Shia that they don't want as a government, which that's what happened now anyway. So I was driving in, it's dark, and there's active bombing. You see anti-aircraft artillery bullets going in the sky and things coming down. And I was really fearful of being bombed directly by the American forces, but the fear is whatever they shoot up, it will go down and that will hurt you. So I was driving a brand new white Chevy. I have my full high beams on. I'm driving. They say stop. I don't care. I tell them, like, I'm a doctor. I have to go to the hospital to help people. So that was my excuse. So, and I think I had at the time I had a paper to prove that status, so I can go through. So I was driving and seeing bombing around you, and you hear it, and sometimes it gets louder than others, and then I felt some gravel hitting the side of the vehicle as I was driving, like as if something like drops at the side of the roads and hit the road or the gravel on the road, and you get gravels and little pieces of rocks hit the car, and so it's like made me a little like, it's getting close. So, but I kept driving, and then I had to go under some underpass. Like bridges and underpass, and I was thinking in my mind like, when the bomb gets really, really heavy, I just slow down to the side of the road, and then I feel like things hitting gravel and things hitting my vehicle, and then I kept going, and then I went and stopped under an underpass to wait for the bombing to calm down a little bit, and then I heard like a very heavy close bomb close to me. That's like, I'm thinking about that. An overpass is a target. Let me keep going. And I was really heading toward the hospital I was assigned to go to. So I went to the hospital, and within probably less than 5 minutes got there, and we started getting a lot of injured people coming from a military computer Air Force monitoring station building. So they have, and we got a lot of guys that like adults dressed military that were screaming, most of them feet and lower extremity injuries. And I asked them, so what happened? They said, they hit the second floor. They hit the second floor through the window. That's how accurate.
Wow.
And I told him, why the second floor? He said, because the computers are all on the second floor. And the building is like probably a 5+ building, story building. And so when they hit the second floor, all the floors collapse, so they fall down, and they have most lower extremity injuries as they're falling on their feet. And so we're in a war. We're seeing casualty, injured people, and we have a generator in the hospital, but it's not running. They would not run it because the instruction from the government to run the generator 1 hour a day, to run the labs. Regardless, there's no other exception.
So you have this resource and you're not allowed to use it?
No. So actually I went and drove my car a little bit closer to the emergency room. I pulled a little emergency light, put it on my 12-volt battery in the car to use it to see what we trying to see. We didn't even have like emergency lights. We don't have flashlights. We're not provided by. And
Wow. I can't even imagine.
yeah, it's like, how are you going to treat people? Well, that's the way it is.
So you just have to work within that situation
Yeah.
as a medical professional.
Yeah, just use your common sense and do whatever you can do in the dark.
You're backing up a Chevy and like, here we go.
Here's some light, and
Some
until
light.
until the battery run out. And at the time, like, you put an incandescent light on how much is that light going to give you? Mm-hmm. But that's the situation. That's a little glimpse of the situation. So that night was one of the nights. That's the very first night. The very first night of the bombing. My family were there, so got done with the shift. And by the way, as resident physicians over there, like, you work like 12 hours, and typically before the war, we stay in there they have like a physician dormitory. We stay there. But because of the war, they tell us you have to go home because we don't have food to feed you. If you stay here, we have to feed you.
They can't be responsible for you.
Feeding you. And they were feeding us only hospital food, like the same food that they give to patients, whatever, rice and beans. So we have to go home. And so wait a minute. Most people over there don't have vehicles. Like, even physicians, like as a resident physician, very few of them has vehicles. There's no transportation. There's gas stations are closed because the first thing when the war started, they was targeted the power, the electricity, water,
The fuel.
phones, and gas station were closed. So there's no transportation means. How do you go to work? So a lot of people didn't go to work. But I have 2 barrels, like 50-gallon barrels that I stored fuel in, and I don't live very far. And I was by myself, and I was enjoying what I was doing. So I go, but a lot of physicians can't go. A lot of nurses and other employees can't go. So I'll be like, if I'm in an emergency room by myself, and typically people don't go unless they're really, really sick, and in that kind of situation. So I remember in that hospital, like, the emergency room is empty. I'm just laying on one of the bed, and if any patient walks in, I can hear their footsteps. And over there, there's no reception, and the nurse, like, because it's the conservative place, the nurse will not even stay in the room with me. She'll be sleeping in another room somewhere else. So all the time if it's something I can manage myself, I don't even call the nurse. I just do everything myself because there's everything around me. There's the medicine,
You
the
have
IVs.
what you need.
Yeah, I don't have to, and by myself. If I need help, I call them, but a lot of time I do. But sometimes you get in a situation like someone comes with, I remember a guy came with diabetes. We don't know if he has high sugar or low sugar because we don't have a way to test him. We don't have portable testers.
So you got to treat blindly.
Yeah, and I think he ended up dying. We didn't know what happened.
Wow. So let's get back to this. So the war is happening. There's chaos is going on all around you. No electricity. What are you thinking now? You're like, I got to get out of here?
No,
Okay.
just survival mode.
Survival mode.
Yeah, and I wasn't thinking, oh, I need to go to America right now. Let me pull my passport.
Yeah.
And go to the airport. No, there's no passports. There's no airport. By the way, you don't have passports over there. You're not allowed to get a passport.
So traveling is something, with a dictator, they don't want you to travel
Yeah,
anyway, right?
because if everyone leaves, then who they get dictate to?
Yeah, exactly.
So actually, so that, and then when in the first, like, I think it was like a couple weeks, and the bombing pretty much died down. At first, the first week or two, the bombing was like 24/7, and then after 2 weeks, maybe, if my memory served me, the bombing was only at night. So we could be driving, going to work, doing whatever. In daytime, there's no bombing. You just go home to bed, and you hear boom, 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 boom. You hear the door shakings and the window shakings from the pressure of a bombing, and you wake up in the morning. It's like, oh, what did they hit? Oh, they hit this and that, and typically they hit all the. So the telecommunication, which is the phone buildings, the telecommunication for phones, it's all landline at the time. There's no cell phones. Mm-hmm. All the telecommunication were hit. the new ones that were built by a Swedish company because they're part of the Allies and they have all the maps and all the locations. But the old telecommunication building that they were not built by foreign companies, they don't have their information. They didn't get hit.
So they called up the Swedish people, like, where'd you build them? And then they have all the targets.
Oh yeah, even the we have some bomb shelters over there. Like they built it during the war with Iran, thinking to protect them from Iran, not from this war. And the bomb shelters were built by foreign companies, and they have the maps and they have the weak spots, and they know how to hit them, even though it's made to withstand bombs. But if they have the map, so how they hit, there's a couple of them. They're like it was a big disaster. Like a couple hundred people died in it. They will put the first missile through the vent, and the second missile to follow it.
That accurate?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Through the main vent, and then the second one to follow it. And there was actually one close to the hospital where my medical school campus was. It was a two-story. The government intelligence and Saddam people were using the bottom story, and they let anyone to go on the first story as a cover, as a civilian cover. So when they got hit, everything got hit, but the only thing you see on TV is civilians getting charcoaled. So
there's a reason that was a target.
So when they got hit from actually the vent, the doors, the main gates, they got like welded in from the heat, and what they found inside was just charcoaled bodies.
That's horrible.
A couple hundred people.
So
survival mode.
Survival mode.
So not like, and then my family came back after, after the main hard time, and we came back to our home in Baghdad. And my brother at the time, he was in the military over there. You don't choose to be in the military. When you finish school, you have to go military. And he was assigned somewhere close to the south, but not deep south, like between the middle and the south of. And then we hear about people saying that U.S. military is dropping leaflets saying to the Iraqi soldiers, surrender, we'll give you a better life. You say that you don't die in the war that you don't believe in, and you want to go to a better life. And so my older brother, he was the only one in the military at the time in my family. He wanted to leave and surrender, to not die in the war and to have a better life.
Because why fight for this guy?
Exactly. And
this dictator's making your life horrible.
Yeah.
Why?
And here's Americans offering you something, offering you savior. So to him, yeah, go for it. And he went with a friend or friends, and I think I might have helped him with printing some papers to help him get to that point, as if he's been transferred from one point to another point. In case there's a lot of military checkpoints. Why are you going this way? Why are you going that way?
Because you got to be secretive, right? Like,
yeah,
you got to totally be.
You can't go from a checkpoint that they know there's American forces behind them, and you're crossing them and tell them I'm going this way. It's like, we have no business going that way.
So he crosses and he makes it.
Yes. And after he left, we were like, okay, so he left. Did he make it? Did he not make it? How did it go?
So you're in suspense. You don't know.
Yeah. So like, there's no cell phones, there's no communication, and if he's with Americans, he's. So my curiosity, after like a week or two, I decided, you know what? I'm gonna make that journey and go south and come back and see how it is. Kind of sniff the news on your own, just like investigate on your own. So I decided I'm gonna go tomorrow morning. And that night that I was going to go, one of his old friends, he came, his name was Ahmed. Hey, how's your brother? I told him, I don't know, he left. He was supposed to go surrender to Americans, but I have no idea if he did, if he make it through. And I'm going to go tomorrow morning and check out. He said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm just going to go take the bus and go to Basra. Because we're in Baghdad. If you go to Basra, there's two ways. One way you go not through the American controlled territory, and another way through the American controlled territory. I thought, I'll figure it out. He said, can I come with you? It's like, I'm going to go in a public transportation bus. You can come with me. It's because I can't. He said, because I can't go by myself. I'm a chicken. It's like, okay, you can come with me. It's okay. So the next morning I was leaving, he came and he brought his neighbor friend with him. He was another adult male. He was saying he was in the military industry over there, like some of the military people over there in factories, they call them military industry.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
So he wanted to do the same thing. He just goes under Americans. Like, okay, it's like.
So you're kind of nonchalant about it. This guy has some genuine fear about what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, we know most Iraqis generally, like I would say, 90% of people they're against Saddam and against the war, but they have no choice. You know, most soldiers, if they turn back, they will shoot them. If they back off, they shoot them. So we went on our way. But the plan is I'm going to go to this first. The city is to the south. It's called. On the way to the south, it's called El Nasiriyah. And because I just graduated from medical school, so if I go to any hospital in the country, in Iraq, I will find some colleagues. Mm-hmm. So I went there and I went walked into a hospital and looked around and found some friends that I know from my class. Hey, what's the scoop you're telling me? If I want to go to the American territories, how people are passing and how
Yeah, you're doing some investigation, getting your intel, your strategy together.
Yeah, he said, you go to this bus stop there, and it's public buses. You say, I want to go to Basra, you go from there, but you have to be a civilian. You should not carry any military ID with you. And there are going to be Iraqi checkpoints. They're going to take down any civilian or any person that's adult in a military age that has no civilian ID to prove that he's not military. And he said there's a lot of military guys, they go civilians and they use just a civilian ID and they don't have any military ID on them. And they go through, and then after that, there are going to be American checkpoints. And the American checkpoints, if you tell them you're military and you show them some proof you're military, they have to take you.
Oh, okay.
As a prisoner of war, because they will not let you go as a military in their military occupied territory. But if you're a civilian, you can go through.
Gotcha.
So the first checkpoint we went in, my medical school was English, and I can communicate with them in English okay. So Ahmed, the first guy, he had an ID that has, and the Americans at the time, they don't have translators. They don't read the ID. They know the color of the ID. If it's yellow,
they have some basic info on how to tell.
So like, oh, you have a yellow ID. Yeah, that's military. You come in, we'll take you. His friend, the other guy, he didn't have a yellow ID. His ID was white, but it says on it the word military industry, but they didn't know. Like, military, we're not taking you. So they took one guy and they didn't take the other guy. And I have a civilian ID. I went through. And then this guy was bummed, like, I want to go. Like, can you help me? Like, what I do is like, tell him, if you want to go, like, and the American checkpoints, the forces were saturated and they're overwhelmed with the number of people, of adults trying to surrender, to leave.
I bet.
Yeah. So the first checkpoint, they're very picky. Like, oh, you have to have yellow, not yellow. No exception. But you go a couple checkpoints in, they're like a little bit loose. So a couple checkpoints in, I start talking to them, tell them like he's military, but he has a white ID. And then the bus drivers are like, you guys are talking too much. Let's go. So I told him, okay, just drop us here at the American checkpoint. So he dropped us. And we started the bus left us, and we start chatting with them and kind of getting friendly and explain to them, look, he's military, but he has a white ID, and this word says this word. He was like, okay, we'll take him, no problem. The ones, couple checkpoints in, not as picky. And they said, we can take you to. I told them, no, I don't want to go. I'm good.
Oh, so you made it this far, and you're like...
I wasn't going to leave.
You just wanted to observe.
I wanted to see. So I understood the process is easy. Any common sense person that's committed, they want to do it, they can do it. And I have a family depending on me. I have medical school to finish. I have a factory.
How old are you?
I was at the time 23.
23, okay. So
23, 24.
Let's fast forward a little bit. So you go back. Now like this process is easy. When do you make the decision, like it's time to go?
So I made it back. It took me about 24 hours to go back because I have to go all the way to the south and then back all the way. So by the time I got back, I barely got back that afternoon, and in the evening, the first guy, Ahmed, he came home to my house like, what? What are you doing here? Oh, he said, oh, let me tell you, I saw your brother. Where? Oh, I saw him. He was with the American forces, and I have a friend that I used to know him from Kuwait. He's a translator, and he was a friend of mine. And he told me, I'll do whatever you want to do. Well, I'll help you with whatever. He said, okay, my friend, his family is worried about him, and I want to go tell his family that he's good. So I came here just to tell you, I saw your brother, and he's good.
Oh, wow.
That's a huge favor. And
Yeah.
I told him, so what are you going to do now? He said,
Yeah.
oh, what are you going to do now? He said, I'm going back. Back where? So I'm going to go back to where I came from, to surrender back to the Americans. Like, wow. And he talked to my mom, and he told her, I saw your son, and he's good and healthy. And
What a kind
fine.
gesture.
Exactly. So you can't ignore a kind gesture. And he said, I'm going to go back, but I'm chicken. I can't do it. Can you help me go
that
back?
fear comes back in his heart. Yeah.
Tell him, how do you want me? How do you want me to help you back? He said, well, now we know the way and we know how to go. Just take me in your car. I told him, but that's like 3 hours drive and there's no gas. He said, I'll buy the gas. So we went and bought some very expensive, what do you call it, under table gas. Like we paid probably 5-6 times the price of regular gas. And I filled up the vehicle, and I took another couple jugs of fuel in the trunk to come back with. So we drove, and I didn't have to ask anyone how to go because we went through it. We know the route, and my vehicle at the time, I have a tag of a physician on the windshield, so they can see this is. And when I identify myself, I show my physician ID, civilian. They would not think that just like any physician would be like defected from military and anything.
They didn't suspect anything.
Yeah, and he actually told me, if you take me, I can actually take you to your brother, let you see him. That was the hook.
Oh, okay.
I can take you where your brother is, and I let you see him, and you can come back. Like, okay, let's go. So we went there. We couldn't find the troops, and because at the time the U.S. just signed a ceasefire, and they start pulling their troops. And there's very few left, and he took us to a place that used to be a U.S. camp, and they're left, and we couldn't find him. It's like, okay, we looked around, we couldn't find him, so I just dropped him and headed back. When I headed back, so I just got home, and that evening, someone comes and knocks on our door, 11 p.m. They identified themselves as, the first guy he's the brother of Ahmed. I don't remember the name of the second guy. Let's say the first guy is A and the second guy is B.
Okay, A and B show up, knock on the door, 11 p.m.
So the second guy says, I'm his brother, and the other one, I'm his father. Where's our sons? Like, what do you mean, where's our sons? You know where's our sons? They surrendered themselves to the Americans. Like, no, they didn't. You took them. You smuggled them to the Americans. And we work for the government, and you have to go bring them back.
So now you're a smuggler.
You have to go bring them back from the Americans. Otherwise, we'll take your mom and sister and your family. We'll torture them so much we'll make them cry blood. These are their exact words.
Wow.
And
you were doing somebody a favor because they did a favor, and now you're a smuggler.
yeah.
Wow.
And like, I was trying to reason with those guys. I'm like, you don't understand. At first, they're adult. They went on their own will. I did not receive any money. I did not do anything to them. I did not encourage them. I might have gone with them in the bus. I've talked, translated, but it wasn't my idea. They were like, and at the end, I felt they were not really interested in the truth. They were interested in shifting blame.
Yes.
So basically, they had a fight. Turned out they had a fight in there between them. So the real story was this guy, he did not see my brother.
He lied?
He lied. So the true story was he, you hear like they get pamphlets in America and say, we'll get you a better life, we'll take you to America, we'll take their promises. So some people want immediate results. So this guy, he wanted to surrender himself. Over there, you get surrendered, you're treated as a prisoner of war. They take your belt, they take your shoelaces, and they put you in a tent, and you wait until they take you or whatever. And this guy's like, where's the airplanes? Where are we going to America?
Yeah, where's America? Where's America?
Exactly. What happened?
Land of milk and honey.
And he's like, he got nervous. Like, I didn't come for this to sit in the desert. I was going to go to America. So they told him, and he started like not liking it. And he asked around, and he learned if he say, hey, I was caught by mistake. I'm a civilian. I'm not a military. So they let him go. He came back home. Listen, when he came back home,
yeah,
the neighbor asked him, where's our son that he went with you? He left with you. Oh, he surrendered to the American. He blamed me.
Oh, wow.
Smuggled him to the Americans. And so, and he didn't have the gut and the decency to stay. He decided he had to run away, go back there to escape that situation. And he came and gave me this lie, so I helped him, and then I'm in trouble. It's like a chain reaction.
That is, I'm at a loss for words.
So they're talking to me at the front gate. It's a average size house, like a house here, a front gate, and my family were like few feet away. They listened to everything they say. I did not have to tell my family what they said because they heard it. So 11 p.m., someone's screaming at you, telling you, you did this and this, you have to bring our kids, our sons, and...
or we're going to make your family cry blood.
Yes. Specifically, your mother and your sister, not like
They go for the weak points,
yes.
The weak ones in the family.
They're vulnerable.
Vulnerable.
And they know you don't, over there, like with that culture, you don't want to mess with your women. So at the end, I felt like I can't reason with them. So I told them, you know what? You want your kids? Sure. I'll bring them to you tomorrow morning. Go home. They went home. I just wanted to end the conversation because I did not feel there's an end to it.
Yeah, arguing would just create
exactly.
more
So I told them, okay, you want kids? No problem. I'll get them for you tomorrow. So I went back home. I did not have to tell my family what happened, what they said, because they heard it. We went to bed, and I did not sleep until 6 a.m. I got downstairs and met with the whole family, and we sat down. It's like, okay, what do you guys want to do? Where we go from here? These people want to blame us, and they're threatening you, Mom, you, my little sister, 16-year-old, at the house at the time. What do we do? They said, what do you think? I told them, you know what? This is the words I use. We're not cockroaches to sit in this shithole. If we do well here, we can do well anywhere in the world.
That's what I'm talking about.
Let's leave this place, and wherever we end, we'll be fine as long as we're safe and together.
And that's what you told them?
And that's what we did. So we picked our best vehicle. We had at the time 5 vehicles. Average people don't even have a vehicle there. We picked our best vehicles. Just the clothes on our body. We didn't take any extra set of clothes, so we didn't look suspicious that we were moving or going somewhere else. We picked up a sheet to cover from the cold, and I know the road. I drove it, so we headed south. At the time, actually, there was a distant cousin. He was staying with us. When those people came, he was asleep. In the morning, when we decided to leave, we woke him up and told him, we're leaving, but we can't tell you where and what happened for your safety, because they could beat him up to get anything out of him. So it's better for you not to know. And he didn't know what we did or what happened. And before we left, we had some cash, and I had a gun. I dropped it at a friend's house, and we told him we're leaving. Where we leaving? And I took some cash. We have an attorney for our candy factory. I dropped some cash for him to pay for rent and expenses. And went back home and picked up the family and left, headed to south toward the American controlled territories.
So you're leaving your home behind, the family business, you're leaving
Yes.
it behind.
We did not even lock the door. I told my family, don't even lock it. If someone want to get in, they'll break it.
Yeah, why bother?
Yeah, just walk out.
So you're leaving your whole family culture behind, and you say,
Everything.
I know the roads. I know how to get us to safety. Just trust me.
And wherever we go, we'll be better than this. Only cockroaches go back to the shithole.
Wow. So you travel these roads, you get to the Americans. What do you say? Because their family's not military.
So listen to this. So I went to the very deep, all the way south, almost to the border with Kuwait, because there was no American troops until then. And there was actually a refugee camp. So I went to them. There's an American soldier sitting on a tank. I went to tell him, we just arrived here, and we run away from the government. We want to be a refugee here. He told me, sorry, we just signed a treaty with the Iraqi government, and we're not taking any more refugees.
It's too late.
Yeah. So what he's not telling me get out of this camp, but when you sign as a refugee, they give you a tent and a blanket, and they take your name. That's it. So I was like, wait a minute, I can't go back. So I was talking to him, and some other refugees, they saw me arguing with him. They said, don't worry, don't bother, don't worry about it. See over there, there's that flag over there. There's another camp over there. It's a Red Cross. It's a Kuwaiti Red Cross, Red Crescent. Go over there, they'll take it. They don't care. They're not U.S. military.
So they don't have to abide by that treaty, that
Yes.
same.
So I went there to the other one, and they said, yeah, sure, no problem. We're closed now. Come in the morning. Like, okay. And I went back. We were 5 people, me, my 2 brothers, sister, and mom, and in a 4-door vehicle. So I went back and told them, like, that's what they said. So my mom went there, and she yelled at him, and she was able to get actually, no, the first night they gave me 1 tent. So we slept in that, 5 people in that. It's a 2-people tent, very thin layer, like a portable camping.
Mm-hmm.
It's designed for 2 people, but we all 5 slept in it.
All 5 of you in this little tent.
Like crisscross, slept in it. And it got cold that night at the time. That was like, I think it was April.
Okay.
And the second morning, my mom went and yelled at them, and they gave us another tent. So now we have 2 tents.
Oh, now mom's taking charge.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And that was the first camp we were in. It was a Red Cross, Red Crescent run by the Kuwaitis and volunteer Americans. And so there's American Red Cross. They come, but they're not military. And we stayed in that camp for a couple weeks. And then they said, okay, there's a huge camp, 5-star, made for Iraqi refugees, and we're reading like posts from like world newspapers, and they say there's shopping, barracks, and streets, and like a 5-star camp made for Iraqi refugees to go there. Okay, let's go there, and we were being transported by American airplanes, American semis and buses. Semis, where they're putting people in the semis in the back, and buses. And because I had a brand new vehicle with me and it's paid for, it's my first brand new vehicle. Like, what do I do with this? Can we drive it there with the convoy? They said, no, you can't. Try to do anything. So I told my family, you go ahead and go, and I'll try to figure out something for the car. Maybe I can find a convoy that will go, and I'll go with them to bring the car with me.
Because this is your car. You've earned this.
My very first
You
brand
paid
new
for
car,
this.
I paid for it in cash in full. Over there's no credits, there's no payments, there's none of that. You buy anything, a home or a car, you have to pay for it cash in full.
You've earned this thing. So what happens? Did you get that convoy?
No. I end up giving like a little power of attorney for a Kuwaiti guy to take it with him to Kuwait when he goes to Kuwait, because there's some Kuwaitis that have issues with their IDs. They call them without citizenship. They got lumped in that camp somehow. So I signed him papers and ended up leaving. When I got to the second camp that was in Saudi Arabia, a refugee camp that was supposed to be the 5-star, I wasn't even a half-star. It was just desert, just like Yuma. Desert, blow sand, and tents. That's it. And the time I got there that day, there was actually a little sandstorm that you couldn't see, like 100 feet, 50 feet in front of you couldn't see.
So you were given some type of like propaganda, or what was it?
Yeah, it was.
Some propaganda. So you need to come here. So why did they want to get you there, though?
It could be like it wasn't propaganda. It was a true news, but the news came from probably mouth of Saudis that was not accurate. They lie and they get away with it.
Gotcha.
Just like how they get away with 9/11.
Yes, gotcha.
So we go there, and the place is controlled by Saudis, managed by Saudis. It's a 1 by 1 mile square, and there was 23,000 people in tents in there.
So now you're under Saudi control?
Yes.
The Saudis got you.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of reading about Saudi Arabia. Not nice.
Not nice at all. They're not friendly to Iraqis. They're not friendly to Americans.
Even though, like, if you watch, like, if you get the narrative of Fox News, they're our friends, they're our allies. We like Saudi Arabia. But I had to do a lot of research myself, because when the second Bush went into doing this preemptive strike and all this stuff, I was like a conservative Republican, a Christian, grew up, and like, I was raised by my grandpa when he saw the first war cheering. So I did that. And then things didn't line up like they were supposed to, and a lot of pieces didn't fit together, and I started to realize these Saudi Arabians there's something up with them.
I cannot explain it, but they're not friendly. They are supporting terror. The U.S. government now is going crazy about Iran as supporting terror. But it's not Iran, it's Saudi Arabia. Tell me, when was the last time in America we have a terrorist activity came from Iran? Can you name it?
I cannot name it. And then the thing, when you brought up 9/11, which
15 of the 19 hijackers were Saudi citizens.
Saudi citizens.
And not easy to get citizenship. That's not a citizenship you walk in and get, or you have a baby there and get. You have to have a parent and grandparent, both Saudis, to get that citizenship.
So these are people with a heritage from Saudi Arabia. So I know we're kind of shifting gears a bit, but that's the thing that tipped me. Like, I was like, wait a minute, this many came from Saudi Arabia. We're doing a preemptive strike in Iraq. We're blaming Osama from Afghanistan. Like, these things aren't connecting correctly.
And Osama, he was originally from Yemen, but he's a Saudi.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, Osama bin Laden, he grew up, and he has the whole Osama family is Saudi. But he's originally from Yemen.
See, yeah, so then it gets even deeper. So with it, like you said, a lot of this stuff is coming from Saudi. So now what happens? You're in Saudi Arabia, it's under Saudi control.
So we got into that camp. So I was like, okay, we assuming that camp is temporary. So when we got there, they gave us some forms saying, okay, well, what's your name, where you're from, what kind of language you speak, what degrees you have, and to try to help you to find you a place to go to live in as a refugee, or to live for the rest of your life. So we thought that was real, that was true. So we filled these forms, we gave them, and everything there, they're managed by Saudis, actually managed by radical religious Saudis. It's just like if you have here a place that's managed by the church, for example. Here the church is understanding moderate people. But over there, if you say managed by the religious Saudis, that's a Sunni radical religious.
Sunni, Shia law.
That's equal to Wahhabism and equal to ISIS
Gotcha.
mentality. Those are the people we're getting our forms, that we fill in. And later on, we found they were burning them in a barrel behind their barracks. All these letters we give, oh, if you want to send a letter to anyone, here's letters, envelopes. We were giving them, they were burning them in barrels behind their barracks.
Why are they putting this show on?
To absorb people.
They're studying you.
When you come in and you have hope, they don't want to give you no hope and shock you. They want to like, oh yeah, it's all right, no problem. We'll do this. We'll send you the letter. We'll try to help you, but procrastinate, and it got to the point. I was there for almost a year, and there's no end in sight.
In this desert.
Yeah, and there's no end in sight.
So just for the sake of time, how'd you get out?
I actually, personally, I left by myself because I felt my family were safe. At the time when we got there, my brother, who was a military surrender, he was in a different camp. We were able to send message to him, and he came and joined us. So that's 2 years older than me, a brother. I was the oldest when we left in the group, in the family. So my brother came and I told him, you know what, we left everything in Iraq. We left 5 vehicles, a factory, a home, and I would like to go settle things and maybe try to help you go back to Iraq to leave this camp, because there didn't look like there's an end in sight in that camp. And we get people visiting us saying like, oh yeah, don't worry. We just came from a camp in Iran, from refugees from Iraq, and they've been there for 5 years. Like, wait a minute. I'm not here to stay for 5 years in the desert. And by the way, I'm calling it a refugee camp, but we were treated like prisoners.
Okay.
Define a refugee. I've been in refugee camps in Europe, and I've been in this camp. It's a prison.
This is a prison.
A prison is when you're in a quarter, quarantined. You cannot leave on your will, and you cannot go anywhere. They just give you food and shelter, and you're in that square area. You cannot leave it.
Yeah, that pretty much describes a prison. So
yeah, when I was in a refugee camp in Europe, you're in a camp. You go there for shelter and food, but you want to walk out, you walk out. No, they're not going to tell you where you're going. You're not going to leave. But in Saudi Arabia, if they catch you walking out of the camp, I've seen people being beaten, tortured, and burned on their skin with electric cables together, get hot, and charcoal burn on their. We were treating their burn as physicians there from being tortured by the Saudis. And you'll never hear about it. The United Nations will not talk about it. And it got to the point that we felt that the Saudis were there just to keep us there, and turned out to be, at the end, there are some political people original from Iraq, but they're currently resident in Saudi Arabia. They want to use people in the camp as their political base to claim them as their supporters or base to have a hand in the future Iraqi government.
Wow. So you guys are little pawns in their little
exactly
their game. That
when
they're
it got
playing.
to that point, I told my family, you know what? I'm not going to sit here wait for the Saudis to do. I'm going to go back. So
just like you took that stance back in Iraq, now you're going to have to face that stance inside of this prison where you've seen people burnt, beaten, and tortured. Let's get to it, Mitch. How'd you get out?
So at the time, there was supposedly an amnesty. Anyone that want to go to Iraq, they can go back. And really, my whole point of leaving Iraq is to save my family from the Iraqi government. I can manage myself. I can protect myself. But my family in safety, I can go back and face the Iraqi regime and Iraqi people, a government, and I'll protect myself. I know how to manage myself. So I actually went back in an amnesty.
Okay.
So basically the Saudis put us in buses and gave us to the Iraqi government. And the Iraqi government put us in buses and took us there to deep in Iraq. And they processed us, asked us your name, your story, whatever. I did not give him my name. I gave him my brother's name. I pretended I'm your brother. I'm my brother, and I was in the military and got caught. And the last processing point, I skipped it. I sneaked out and left. I didn't get my last paper release in my brother's name, and went back to the hospital. I went back home, kind of assessed the situation. At the time, my house, that we left, my aunt wanted to live in it. There was some attempt of someone to come and take it over, but my aunt was living with her in-law, with her mother-in-law, and she'd rather deal with the Iraqi government than her mother-in-law. So she
moved into the house.
So when I went there, she was already in the house. I kind of assessed the security situation and said, you know what, I can manage. So I went back and went back to the hospital I was supposed to go back to finish my residency.
Okay, so we're kind of almost running out of time. This is a great story. We're probably going to have to do part 2, Mitch.
Okay.
But this is, it's been more in depth than what I anticipated, and I think this would be a good place to stop, to keep people in suspense to listen to part 2. What do you think?
Sure, no problem.
Because you're here now. Your name's Mitch Freeman. I doubt that was your name in Iraq. Yeah, I could assume, I could guess, and I would love to have you back, and we do part 2, and we could dive deeper in how you made that trip. Because even going back to face Iraq, this place you just fled from, this place that you just said enough, only roaches go back to die in this desert. You went back, but this time you weren't a roach.
Mm-hmm. But I wasn't planning to go back to be there forever.
Exactly.
I was using it as an exit to leave the camp. And that's the only way to exit the camp, is to go back to Iraq and exit again.
So here's the strategy. You know what? We're going to end it right here. We're going to come back with part 2. You're going to listen to this. You're going to remember where you ended.
You have to write it down to remind me.
I will remind you. We'll take care of it. I thank you so much. And we're going to end it right here. Thank you guys for listening. The Are We Where Yet podcast. This is season 2, episode number 3. And we're going to find how Mitch became a free man. Thank you guys.